everyone. How are we doing tonight? Hi. Oh, my goodness. That was so tepid. Are we ready? Go green. Go white. Go green. Go white. All right. You're all awake. We're all good. I'm so happy to hear this. So my name is Aaron Richard. I am the Director of Marketing and Communications here at the Burgess Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. It is my deep pleasure to welcome you all here to our second Innovate state of the season. We've got a great guest for you tonight. But first, I have to do some housekeeping for you. So here are the announcements I've been instructed to tell you about. All right. So first, two-day venture registration is open until this Friday. How many of you have heard of two-day venture? Oh my goodness, fantastic. How many of you have participated in two-day venture? Oh, so we've got opportunity here. We've got a huge opportunity. Just to let you know, two-day venture is a 36-hour experience where a whole bunch of students come together and take their idea from idea stage to business plan in 36 hours. The great thing about this event is that it counts as an entrepreneurship and innovation experience. So if you are earning your minor in entrepreneurship and innovation, you know that you have to get 2 experiences for the minor. So this is a perfect opportunity to get your experience in early in the semester. Now, there are 2 sessions in fall and 2 sessions in spring, but don't let that procrastinate you. And don't do that. Get it in early. It's the best time, and your professors will thank you. And so will yourself. Okay, so that's good. Applications are due this Friday. You can go to our Instagram page, click the link in bio, and you can follow all of the links in there and register today. There is a small fee. It's $10. Now, if this is a good thing. If you participate the whole weekend, you get a refund of that $10. Yeah? So there's a little carrot and a little stick. And so register today. Also, closing on Sunday, October 1st at 11:59 p.m. is the Bradbury Scholarship Application. The Bradbury Scholarship Application is a great opportunity. You can find out all the details by going to our Instagram page, clicking the link in bio, and clicking on the link to the Bradbury application, which is at the very, very top. All right? Third and final, the next Innovate State will be on October 10th. It is our first Emerging Leaders speaker of the season, so that's going to be very fun. It's going to be Courtney Page, who is the founder of Page of Positivity. I did it. I kept saying prosperity. It was a whole mess, but I did it this time, so thank you, Aubrey. Tonight is a pleasure to tell you that the conversation is going to be moderated by my wonderful colleague and friend, Ken Smuziak. He is the managing director at the Burgess Institute for Academic Programs, so he's going to be a wonderful moderator, and my most excited moment is to welcome Tamira Chapman to this stage. Tamira is an inspiration. She is an inspiration to all of us. She is an attorney, she is an entrepreneur, and she is the founder of Storehouse in a Box. Storehouse in a Box. Stock in a box. That's a storehouse in a box. And so it is my deep pleasure, and I hope that you'll give Tamira a warm welcome. Come on up.
All right. Yay. Woo. Thanks, Aaron. All right, mic check. I think we're good. I'll flip yours on. We are live. Check. We're live now. Welcome, Tamira, to Innovate State.
Hello.
This is going to be a really fun conversation. I'm excited that you're willing to join us tonight and spent a whole day at MSU with colleagues and friends and revisiting folks around campus. And I had the opportunity to meet you over the summer. The Burgess Institute co-hosts a really interesting summer camp, a high school summer camp for entrepreneurship now with our partners at the multicultural business programs here in Broad. And Tamira volunteered as a keynote speaker for us over the summer, so we had a chance to connect there. And man, I was wowed by the story then. And she's like, I've had to tell the same story now probably 10 times a day. So, but I think it's a really, really interesting journey that you've been on, as Aaron said, kind of from corporate to entrepreneur and attorney along that journey, and also like your entrepreneurial journey as a student here at Michigan State. So we're going to cover a wide variety of topics. 45 minutes probably won't do it justice, but we want to leave time for Q&A from the audience as well. And so I got a couple of starting points for us to jump off on, and then we'll just kind of riff and see where it goes, which is, it's kind of like a podcasty kind of conversation. So we're open to wherever it leads.
Let's do it.
All right, sounds great. Well, I always start this off with kind of, maybe it's a little bit of a cliche question, but what was your time like at Michigan State, and what was formative about it? Like, what are your memories like here, and how did it kind of set the trajectory for where you are today?
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to say good evening to everyone, and thank you all for having me again. It's an honor and a privilege to be back at Michigan State, a place that I consider to be my second home. Yeah. So thank you all so much. I graduated from State back in 2001. So I started in 97, and at that point, computers were brand new, right? Yeah. It just seems like the strangest thing to say now, but literally, I remember going into a computer lab for the first time in the basement of the dorm, like, how to turn it on? Right. So like so much has changed in a short amount of time, but when I got ready to come to State, I was the first in my family to go to college. And I intended to go to a HBCU. I actually wanted to go to Spelman. Okay. But I knew that I wanted to be an attorney. And my mom had an attorney for some family work that we were getting done. And she knew that I was a senior. And so when we went to meet with the attorney one day, she said, "Oh, where are you going to go to college?" And I said, "I'm going to go to Spelman." And she said, "Spelman? What's that?" And I just remember like being taken aback by it. And I'm like, man, so here's someone who's doing what I want to do, but she's never heard of Spelman. And at that time, it wasn't this big HBCU wave that we have today, right? So in my mind, I'm like, man, well, when these colleges come back to campus to start doing recruiting, I better start paying attention. So I was admitted into Michigan, and I was admitted into State. And I spent some time at Michigan's campus, and I didn't think that it was as collegial as I would have hoped. I didn't see a lot of students outside, like really congregating, and this was going to be my first experience away from home, and I wanted to go to a place where I really felt community. And so I came to State, and it was completely different. Like everybody's outside on rollerblades, like they're sitting outside, they're eating. And I think it's because the campus is all connected, like, right? There's not the city just running through it. And so I said, well, I think State will be the place. Okay. So that's how I got here. And then when I got to State, my family was having some financial troubles. We were homeless at the time. And I knew that I couldn't just get any job on campus. And so, of course, you know, you can work in the dorms, you know, you can go work in the caf, you can work in the library. But a lot of that was work study. And the most I could make, I think, was like $1,200 or something like in a semester. And I'm like, that's going to solve nothing. Right. And so I saw a job posting for the Natural Sciences College, and they were paying like $20 an hour. And that was a lot, because like the minimum wage for work study was probably like $5 or $6 an hour or something like probably. That. Yeah. $6 probably. So, yeah, exactly. $6.50. Yep. And so when I saw $20 an hour, I said, that's my kind of job. And so the posting was for a web developer. The only problem. The only problem is that I just learned how to turn this computer on. Right. And the post was for a web developer. So I go to the Natural Sciences College, and I go in to apply for this job. And, you know, I'm nice, I'm friendly, I've got a big smile, I've got a can-do spirit for sure. And the people are looking at me, and we're going through the interview, and we get to the end, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe I got a decent shot. Like, they didn't really say anything to me that I feel like I didn't handle well. And they said, well, we want you to go home tonight and attempt to build out this one-page website. And for the second part of your interview, bring it back tomorrow. I said, oh, I'm dead in the water. And so
there was no YouTube then.
There was no YouTube. I'm on my own.
You guys don't realize this, right?
I know. Like, I literally went to the library and got like web design for dummies. Like the dummies books were really big back then. Yep. And so
Dreamweaver.
Yeah,
something, right?
Dreamweaver.
Yeah, right.
Dreamweaver.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even have CPS 101 yet. So I go back to the dorm, and when I get there, my suite mates, I lived in Wonders, they were sophomores. And so they had already had like the CPS 101, like the basic, computer class that taught you how to do very basic things in web design. So I came back and I'm like, hey, I need help. I need everybody to help me. And they're like, what do you want? And I'm like, I just interviewed for a job. I got to put together this one-page website. I don't know the first thing. They're like, it's nothing. We got you. So we stayed up all night. My suite mates helped me. I go back in the next day for the second part of the interview, and I give them the website. And the first thing they do is they kind of look at it and they're like, who helped you? Right. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, right. I did this website. They're like, who helped you? And I was like, my suite mates. And they said, yeah, we know because when we were interviewing you, like you had none of the language, right? So when you're in tech and you're doing all things web design, like there's a language for that. I literally had nothing. And they said, but what we did like about you is that one, you are a freshman. And normally when we hire people for this job, like they're juniors or seniors and they're graduating fast, and then we have to keep starting back over with the department website. So we want somebody that's young that we can keep for a longer period of time. And the fact that you went home and you figured out how to do it and came back, that's really enough. And so essentially, the natural sciences department would pay for me to get almost every web certification that you all could imagine. So by the time I graduated from Michigan State, I had my tech stack was so deep that I was getting job offers full time for straight tech stuff. But my degree was in business and supply chain management. But safe to say, it was through that experience and really because of out of necessity what was happening at home that even forced me to jump that high. And when I jumped that high, I landed just fine. I got the job. I did it successfully, over 4 years. And then because the tech stack was so strong, I ended up launching a web development firm while I was in college. And when I graduated from state, I took a job in my degree, which was supply chain. But then I launched a web design company on the side and was making a ton of money and very successul, like on graduation.
Right. So you had this side hustle, tech job, so you could, you were outsourcing development work already, right? So, I mean, you were ahead of your time. So can you tell us how you stumbled into that?
So I had a mentor that I met here at the MSU Black Alumni Tailgate during homecoming. And so I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. So during the tailgates, alumni would always try to introduce us to, various people that were in those fields. So one of the women that I was introduced to, she was an attorney at General Motors, and she bought a book for me that was called The World is Flat. And essentially
Thomas Friedman.
Yeah. And the book was basically about the advent of the internet and how before, if you needed to get something done on the other side of the world, you had to go out to sea, right? Like you had to go rough it out, like in the waters to get to another spot, or you got to get on a plane and go try to find your people in another country. But with the internet, like now everything is like aggregated. There's a nice filter on it and you could find things. And so I don't even know what made her buy me that book. But after I read it, I'm like, I wonder if there are other web developers out there, that are really on top of this stuff, because the only thing I didn't love about the field is that I would learn a language and then in 6 to 8 months, that entire language could be obsolete because there's just so much innovation. It's just like the AI, like it's just hard to stay on top of it and be a beast all the time. So I'm like, man, I need somebody else to have more time than me that can stay on top of this. So I knew in India that they were firing on all cylinders for all things tech. So I was just like, let me see if I can find some people in India. And I did. I found one developer and she led to 2 other developers. She had friends. And so I would hire her for what she thought was more than a fair wage in her country for this work. In the United States, it was still so new, like people trying to get websites and stuff, that you could charge a lot, like you could really place a premium on it. And so that's what happened with me. And I really thought for a while that maybe I wouldn't even end up going to law school because I was making so much money, like on the tech side, selling websites. I wasn't even doing the work other than business development. I got a successful job, like working as a buyer. And then here comes things like Shopify and BigCommerce, right?
Templates.
Like templates. So I'm like, where did that come from, right? So like for years, like there was no way to like self-help, like build a website. So if you wanted one, like people were paying $20,000, $25,000 a pop for these things, and then I'm able to source this same labor for like, $1,000 or $1,500. So like there's a huge spread of profit there. And then like overnight, literally, Big Commerce was the first one to come out. And they started charging people $25 a month. For the exact same thing. And I said, it's time to go to law school.
Game's over.
Game over.
Time for law school.
Time to go to
But
law
man,
school.
what a formative entrepreneurial journey for you though, to like leverage that, like leverage the employer, leverage your learning, your ability. And it's hard to imagine, I think now, like students, like we can build a website in 30 minutes now, right? But like what we had to do back then was it was monumental lifts to, if you wanted to sell something online, it was really crazy.
It was rather difficult, but I do think that like the scaling part like came only after you actually did the work yourself, right? So it's hard to say I got a bright idea, let's just give it to somebody else to do it. Like the reality is you have the bright idea, but you actually have to try your hand at that thing. You have to know. So it was easy for me to be able to instruct the team and say exactly what I needed and like speak the language very well. At least for a period of time before the languages kept changing until some point I just threw my hands up and said I'm not going to know it.
Right, because this field was moving too quick.
It was moving too fast.
Right. You got to really want to live on that frontier. So that took you to law school.
That's right.
And why law? I know there's an interesting story here, and I think it's really important. I think it's an important story because I think oftentimes when we're, especially in college, formative years, you're trying to think through what your passion's going to be and like what drives you. And everyone has different drivers, and I think you have such a unique story on what took you to law school. I'd love for you to share if you don't mind.
So my grandmother was the real, nucleus of our family, as I'm sure are most of your families, right? And so my grandmother, the glue that really kind of bound us together, she ended up dying of breast cancer. But that's not before she was like misdiagnosed for 8 years. So she was in and out of various different hospital systems, and at all relevant times, they're just telling her that she has asthma. So that's what she thinks that it is. But again, this is back in the 80s. So like today, we have all the language, like we know all the things. And I'm sure that if she was diagnosed today, she would be around to live a long, healthy life. But back then, that wasn't particularly the case. And they didn't recognize it and diagnose it as easily. And so from a little girl perspective, when my grandmother died, like I really just watched my family fall apart. Like from like the close-knit ties to like the financial side of it. And my grandmother was one of my primary caregivers. And so I think just from my perspective, I'm like, well, what could I really do to avenge this, right? And so the thought became, I'll be a lawyer, and I'll close down hospitals that are like guilty of medical malpractice, and I'll see to it that nobody else like my grandmother dies. Because I think you have to tell yourself some story in order to be able to cope with something that's like that. And so literally from 9 years old until like my 20s, whenever anybody said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would say a medical malpractice lawyer, and I never blinked. So people that know me today, like they're like, she wanted to be a medical, like it doesn't matter who you ask, like they'll all say the same thing. And so when, Big Commerce and Shopify and all these other people come along, I'm like, the gig's up, I'm going to law school. And so I never forgot about that because that was my strong why. So like, although I had figured out how to make money, I didn't feel real passionate about the work that I was doing. It was just something that I was doing. So when it was time to go to law school, I couldn't afford to go full time because there wasn't like this big bank of money that was just waiting on me. And I had already amassed quite a bit of debt from undergrad too. And so I went into Wayne State and I had planned on being a combined day evening student, which meant that it would take me 5 years instead of 3. And it meant that I would work. So I would work, at my job as a buyer at the same time and basically go to school at night. And my very first day of school, I went in and they had a big orientation and all the deans are there. and the deans are, talking to different people. And one of the women asked, could she have a conversation with me? She takes me to her office, me and her speak, and she say, well, tell me a little bit about your story, what got you here and all this other stuff. And I tell her. And she was like, oh, okay. She was like, well, are you going to be full-time? And I said, nope, I'm combined day, evening, but it's fine. I'll get it done. And so she was like, all right, Tamira, well, nice to meet you. I went back to work, and that next morning she called me. And I was at my desk, and she said, Tamira, she said, you can log into your pipeline account. She said, and you can thank me with your grade reports. And I said, And I logged in, full ride scholarship to law school. Wow. And I couldn't believe it. And essentially, I probably an hour went by, typed up my resignation, went and gave it to my boss.
On their computer,
like,
printed it out.
On their computer, and handed it right over. But I think that what made the story just so meaningful to me is that right before I was starting law school, my grandfather also had cancer, and he got really sick with it. And the drugs that he was taking just to keep him out of pain, so they had already decided that he wouldn't make it.
Right.
But he was in hospice, and the medicine that he was taking fell out of what's called a formulary. And so when it falls out of formulary, that means that your insurance company will no longer cover it. And the only way you get access to the medicine is if you cash pay it at full price. And so the medicine that he needed to take, he needed 3 of these pills a day to kind of just take him out of pain, and it was about $100 a day. So the money that I had saved up from working as a buyer, I had put it all in my 401k, but then I see my grandfather struggling and sick, so I start withdrawing this money to help my family cover these expenses. So by the time it was time for me to go to law school, this money was pretty much gone. But I never thought twice about doing it because, this is somebody that you love, and if given a chance, I'm like, I'll figure money out later. Let's just do what needs to be done today. So I think, the biggest wink, that God could give back to me was that on my first day of law school, what I thought was gone, was completely restored, 10 times over. And I never really had to worry about money again.
Yeah.
I walked into law school, and the rest was history.
Man, that's a heck of a story, though. Yeah.
Yep.
And so at law school, you wanted to go into litigation, and so you got your law degree, and then you went to work at a firm.
Yep.
And that moved you from firm to General Motors,
Yep.
or to Ford, excuse
Yep.
me. Your time at Ford, can you tell us what that was like? And then maybe in that story, what was the inspiration for Storehouse? I think that's the really interesting inflection.
So when I was in law school, Michigan has what was called tort reform, which essentially means that a lot of lobbyists got together. So insurance companies, doctors, hospitals, a lot of folks were getting sued for medical malpractice. They were losing their practices, hospitals going out of business. And so essentially they started to lobby for what was called tort reform. And what tort reform means is that all this stuff has already been decided. So if I say, hey, my grandmother died and she was worth X million to us, maybe in the past we could win, but now they've already decided, well, how was your grandmother? How much money was she working at the job she used to work? What did she lose, a finger? Oh, that'll be worth $8,000. So this stuff has...
It's all calculated.
It's all
the different
calculated.
ailments that could happen.
All the ailments.
Yeah.
So the thought of
kind of predetermined.
The thought of you just being a really good lawyer and going to advocate for some amazing outcome, that idea is kind of out the window. It's just it's almost paperwork now, right? To get to the bottom line.
You weren't going to be able to fight the good fight.
I wasn't going to be able to fight the good fight. So went into a law firm and started practicing litigation and intellectual property, primarily because of my heavy tech background. When I got into the firm, they're like, oh, this is something great that we could leverage. So I'm there at the firm. I'm doing that for, maybe 5 or 6 years. But again, I don't think I'm completely in my purpose because I was supposed to be doing something to kind of, avenge my grandmother's death and to help people like her. So I'm like, you're still off track.
IP, patent attorney.
Yeah, I'm like,
so
this
much.
isn't exactly getting it. And then at the same time, Obama was starting to run for office, and his platform, was healthcare reform. So I'm like, okay, if there was ever a time when you would do healthcare, now's the time. Go ahead and start trying to launch this practice. So I shared that with the firm. They started me working on various healthcare matters, and within about a year, I got a call from Ford, and they said, "Can you come in and run, healthcare for us and be responsible for our hundreds of thousands of employees, their health plans, and everything else like that?"
Right, because implementation was going to be
Of
really,
Obamacare.
Still is. It's not easy,
Still
right?
is.
Yeah.
So I think that for me, at this time, I'm still not thinking much of it. Other than sure, like I'll try my hand at this, and maybe I was there for about 6 months before it just finally dawned on me that now I had an opportunity. My grandmother used to work as an hourly worker in these factories. And so for me now to be at Ford Motor Company on behalf of hundreds of thousands of employees that were similarly situated to her and be able to help make some of these decisions, like I finally felt like I was on the path and doing what I had been called to do, since I was 9. And so I stayed at Ford and helped implement healthcare reform, and maybe I did that for about 5 years. And then Michigan started to experience an economic downturn, and I watched some of America's most storied nonprofits start to go out of business because they were losing funding. So when things are going well, corporations write real big checks.
All the time.
Right, all the time, there's money for everything. But the moment there's time to tighten the belt, what we find is that those nonprofit donations are the first sort of thing to dry up. And so I knew that folks spend about $7 trillion a year in like the consumer goods space. So that's like everything that we wear, everything that we touch. Like a lot of money is spent here. And so the thought was if I could help nonprofits authentically enter the space of consumer goods, then they could recapture some of that revenue for their causes, right? And so said another way, if you are the Humane Society, the Humane Society right now doesn't retail any products. But if we were to work with them, we would simply say, why don't you become like the local pet store? We'll come in and help them design dog collars, dog jackets, things for cats, leashes, dog beds. And now when you get ready to sell these products that your customers are already buying, you'll capture a piece of that revenue stream back to your organization.
Right. So you do a revenue share back to your...
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And you saw Ford kind of backing off their donations, and you're like, okay.
Well, not just Ford, it was really just kind of nationwide. So whenever the economic downturn start, and I think that we saw a lot of that during COVID, right? A lot of companies taking a pause, taking a big step back, but what do we have? Like all these frontline workers, all these nonprofits were really out, trying to do the good work, but not having the necessarily funding that they needed to do it. And
was there something you witnessed, like an actual cause that you were behind that you saw this happen to? So it was cancer research? Yeah. And so you noticed that decline, it personally hits you, and you're like, we got to think of something different.
There needs to be
that was the triggering moment. Okay.
And so with the background in supply chain, I already knew how to source. I understood logistics very well. I was already buying talent. Now I just learned how to buy products. Right? And so it was really easy because when you think about it, the nonprofits already have a large customer base built in. So normally when people launch businesses, one of the ways that they fail is that you don't have customers waiting to buy products. But the nonprofits already have a ton of customers, right? They're missing a product. So now if you give them the product and they made it with the customer, then that becomes a really big success.
Who's your first customer, and like how did that...
MSU.
It was MSU?
MSU.
Okay. How did it come about?
So the ISOs.
Okay.
The ISOs. So when we were here, and like most times, the men's basketball team extraordinarily successful. We started making products for MSU when we first started retailing them at various stores all around campus. And Miss Izzo, I think, walked into the Kellogg Center. And she saw the shirts everywhere because we were really the first folks on this side of the world that launched the Bling T-shirts.
Okay. Yep.
And we had them, and to this day, if you all see Miss Izzo at a game, you'll still sometimes see her in them.
Yeah.
So she saw them, took a liking to them, and she's like, "Who's making these?"
Yeah.
I got a phone call, and the rest was history. She was on.
Yeah.
You should be in every university.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. And now you're on your way. Right.
Yep.
That's
So,
the plan.
yeah.
When did you leave? What was the triggering moment to leave Ford? Did you start this as a side hustle too?
I did.
Yeah.
Yep.
And how long did you wait? Like how many customers
Not
before you got
long.
comfortable?
Not long. So at Ford, I had successfully completed my stint with implementing healthcare reform. I was promoted and had a job where I needed to build out a social media center of excellence around the world for the company. And then after that, I was being promoted to labor and bargaining. So everything that you all see right now with the strike, like I would have been knee deep in that, helping manage that process. And for me, I thought that role required me to stay in it somewhere between 8 to 12 years.
Yeah.
So the first 4 years, I needed to be trained by the current person that was in it.
Yeah.
The next 4 years, I would have finally been on my own.
Yeah.
And unless I had somebody training under me then,
Pick another 4 years.
pick another 4 years,
Right,
right?
yeah,
So I
yep.
was just like, ooh, I think I started
Yeah.
doing the math. And I just thought if there was ever a time for me to try, that
Yep.
now was it. So we started Storehouse, but by the time I left for it, it was pretty successful
Okay.
already. So it
Yeah.
wasn't much of a gamble. It was just me making the decision that now was the time.
Now is the time. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What has it been like growing Storehouse? Like, what have been the biggest challenges that you faced as a rapidly growing? And I must also say congratulations
Thank you.
as your EY Entrepreneur of the Year award, which is a huge honor. If those of you who are not familiar with that award, but you've gotten the attention of a lot of people over the last few years.
Yeah.
What have been the biggest hurdles in growing the company, and maybe lessons learned, kind of looking back on this trajectory, which has been pretty rapid?
I think that the biggest lesson for me is being surrounded by people who care and that are as passionate as I am about the vision to help democratize revenue streams for all so that social good can continue. So when I got ready to launch Storehouse, I launched it with my family. And so my brother's here in the audience, hi. And he's our creative director. And so I would say the first 7 to 8 employees were all family.
Another Spartan, by the way.
Another Spartan, by the way.
Just a theme.
There
Right out.
seems to be a theme
Yeah,
here. And so building the business with like-minded people who believe in you, who will be willing to come early, stay late,
Yep.
not question you much about finances and being paid.
Don't
and
ask
being-
questions. We'll pay you sometime.
I'll pay you
Right, right,
eventually.
yeah.
Like, just help, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that without my family, none of it is possible, right? Because other than that, you're just somebody with a bright idea and you're trying to convince a bunch of strangers to come in and help when most people are seeing the bottom line like from the beginning. So for any budding entrepreneurs, to the extent you're trying to get something off the ground and you're looking for the first set of folks that you'll hire, be sure to look to your family, be sure to look to your friends, because those are the folks that are likely to come in the quickest.
Be committed.
And be super committed.
Yeah. There's trade-offs there, though.
Yep.
Because then Thanksgiving dinner is weird, right?
Well, well,
Or not weird, depending how
it's
successful.
It's very interesting
right?
that you say that, because I can't tell you, so being in the retail space, I can't tell you how many times we've had to run to the house, half dinner, barely finished dinner,
Right.
and we're right back working, and it's
Right.
the whole family, right?
Yep.
And like during those times, like I felt terrible, because I'm just like, oh my God, like you got your family in here, like it's Christmas Eve, like
Right.
you know,
Retail
like,
doesn't rest.
Retail doesn't
Yeah.
rest. So
It's
like,
actually the worst times. It's the best times, right?
It
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
yep. And so I felt really bad about that, like
Yeah.
for a long time. I don't feel bad about it anymore because it all worked out. But
Right.
back then, like I felt really guilty about it. And I think that if that was anybody else, like other than
Yeah.
family, we probably would have already been out of business, because nobody else would have been willing to like come in, work those sort of hours and just go along with it. In terms of things that have been like the challenges
Yeah.
for us, I think being able to keep up with the pace of kind of incoming business for us.
Yeah.
And so we don't do any marketing, we don't do any advertising, we aren't actively out trying to get any customers. So to the
It's
extent
all referrals.
it's all referrals.
Still the best form of
Yep.
marketing. Yeah.
And the customers that we have just always want to go deeper.
want more.
Yeah, so they're just like, oh, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. So for us, we could really have 5 customers and be set. Like that could be plenty.
Yeah.
So I think it's scaling the team, making sure that as we scale, we still have the right technology in place, we still got the right processes. It's rather easy, like when it's mostly family or it's a small team. But when that starts to change, you want to make sure that your ethos stays with all the people and that folks are still
Culture's
thinking
hard.
of culture is very hard, right? And so today, like we have the benefit of, you know, you could tell someone has a long face and say, hey, pop in my office, everything okay? Anything I can do to support you? You know, but the more you get ready to scale, people won't particularly know that you care like that.
Right.
And so like my guess is that you'll start to experience a little bit more churn. A lot of our tech stack that we started out with, we've outgrown. So when you get ready to launch, you're just like, okay, what's here? There's Shopify, there's Stripe, like there's this, there's that. So you're just like plugging all these things together. But there will come a time when these things no longer serve you, like you've outgrown these massive platforms, and now it's time for you to build your
Custom
own tech.
stuff. And,
Yes.
Yeah.
Negotiating contracts, you know, thinking about what your footprint really looks like. So, you know, when you get ready to do a deal with somebody like PayPal, so let's say that you all launch some online e-commerce store and you just plug in Shopify payments, right? Shopify payments would just say, you know, we're going to take $2.99 plus 30 cents for each transaction. And in the beginning, you aren't thinking about that. You're like, whatever, take your money and pay me mine. Like, but you'll look up eventually and you're just like, wait a minute, I'm making $1 million a month. And how much did they get? And then now you have to slow down because it's like, well, maybe there's a conversation to be had with Shopify. Let me call them to see if I can negotiate this rate. Like, or how much money did we spend on shipping? Maybe there's a negotiated rate. Like, so the more you grow, all these other problems come along with it.
Yeah.
And you have to pay serious attention to it. If
They're
not,
like a little
something will
big
break.
problems.
They're little big problems.
Right,
That's exactly what they are.
Yeah, like these kind of like little things that you begin to notice. You're like, how am I? Why am I charging X? Like, or why do I get charged X? What has you most excited about the future of Storehouse?
I think some of the global work that we're doing.
Okay.
So a lot of the work that we've done here in the United States is really transferable to other countries. And so we're starting to get quite a bit of interest from other organizations that are not in the United States that desire the same sort of services. And when we look to these other spots, it's really ground zero there.
Yeah.
So like there's a big upside for us to make the investment to go into some of these new spaces.
Okay.
So globalization.
Globally. Like any particular countries have you super excited?
Yeah, so all things UK.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So diving in there.
Yep.
All right. Really interesting. What would you, if you look back on kind of the trajectory of your career, putting yourself back in shoes of a college student, what were the things that you think, you've had a lot of really interesting serendipitous moments and some cool stuff happen, but a lot of it's because you were prepared and you were out there being active and doing the work. Advice for a college student, as cliche as that is, because I think I ask that question too every time, but it's an interesting question. Like, what are the things that you were really, you know, if you had to put yourself back in college again, you'd do again? Right? Or wish you would have done?
I would just say have your way, right? Like this is like your fantastic opportunity to do it your way. And so life isn't always so kind. Like on the other side of graduation, you don't know what it looks like. So to the extent that you have a big idea now, like just try it, right? So there's likely, you know, maybe no spouse at home, there's likely no kids at home, you know, your parents may have a position, but they'll be fine as long as you make it. So I would say that today is the opportunity for you all to try everything, you know, to meet as many people as you can, because once you graduate, you'll find yourself really in a silo. So this is an opportunity to meet like a lot of different cultures, to see how people think. Go learn about different foods, go learn about different customs, because you never know what's going to spark your genius. Or you may say, oh, I'm ready to launch XYZ, but I really wish I knew somebody that understood this culture. It's just like you'll already have a friend plugged in for that. You know, to the extent that there's some venture that you want to try, like you're free to try it today, because if it doesn't work, You'll graduate here shortly, and you'll be off to corporate America or wherever else you want to go. Yes. Oh.
Oh, that's about time limit. What do I got? A few minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
I can't see it. That's
Oh,
all
yeah,
I
I'm
need.
like, yes,
Okay.
what would you like? All right, so my last question then would be, what are your favorite, so this is like the Tim Ferriss question, favorite books, resources, podcasts, like what are the things you turn to that you would recommend people check out?
So I'm really big into autobiographies.
Oh, interesting.
I am huge on them. I read as many as humanly possible every year.
Yeah.
But I've got to say that my first book is the Bible.
Okay.
So I'm
Fair
always
enough.
start
Yeah.
there.
It's a number one bestseller.
It's a number one bestseller, and it's never let me down.
Right.
So I'm going to say start with the Bible. And then I think after that, me and Dimitri share one, which is Shoe Dog. And
Oh,
Bill
me
Knight.
too. Yeah, that's I'm finishing it for the second time
Are
right
you?
now.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
every year, just
Yeah.
pick it up and
Pick it
just
up.
start over again, right?
Yeah.
I also love Viola Davis's book. I don't know if anybody read that one, but it was fantastic. Sam Walton's book, Made in America. Will Smith's book.
Okay.
I think that the autobiographies of the greats, really just help you understand that you have that greatness inside of you too. So I first started reading the books because I was like, okay, there must be some secret, to all these people that made it.
Yeah.
Let me read as many as I can and learn the secrets. But it was really no secret, other than those people simply just didn't give up. And so reading those sort of books help you keep your confidence up for a long amount of time.
Yeah.
So autobiographies are tops for me.
Interesting. Yeah. There's also something interesting about learning about the history, like seeing how other people had to navigate.
Yeah.
And you commented this earlier, like it's hard to imagine, and it's hard to relate to college. I mean, like I didn't have high-speed internet till I got here, and that wasn't that long ago, right? Like it was like plugging in, and like you could actually do stuff online. At home, we had to wait for the thing to beep, and it's like crazy how fast that trajectory has changed. But I think sometimes that's also a stifling thing because it's hard to imagine doing new things because it seems like everything's been done sometimes. But I love your example of like there's lots of geography, there's lots of places. You got to sometimes spend the time, like, most of our needs are met here at Michigan State. Like, we're in a nice room, we have Panera next door, like, but there are places where it's not like that, and that's where opportunities lie sometimes.
I think that you get to reimagine everything for your generation, right?
Yeah.
Like, somebody just sent me some pants in the mail the other day, and they're like riding pants again. Like, so some are like bell bottoms, and then there are some with stirrups. And I'm like, really, stirrups are back?
Right.
Like, so it's
It all comes back.
It all comes back. So I think that everybody gets a chance to reimagine things.
Yeah.
Like what I love most about Will Smith's autobiography, and if you get a chance, you should download the audiobook. Because what I learned is that when there's something that's for you to do, like it's literally there waiting on you. So for all the books I've read, for all the autobiographies, I've never in my life heard an autobiography like his. He brought the thing alive.
Okay.
Like his the audio book is like a movie.
Right.
So like he's talking about the first time he met DJ Jazzy Jeff, and all of a sudden you hear DJ Jazzy Jeff playing. I'm like, is that music? And then the next thing you know, like you hear him scratching and you hear him trying to rap or he's bringing in other characters, but it's actually their voices.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, wow, Will.
That's a cool.
Here's a full
experience.
production,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So even though some things have been done before, that's really irrelevant. Like when you get ready to put your touch on it, it's going to be new because there's not another you in the world. So even if you think it's been asked, it's been answered, we already got burgers, we already got fries, like there'll be something special about how you do it. So do it anyway.
I love that. Man, that's an awesome message. With that, I'm going to open Q&A to the audience. And if anyone has any questions, Tamira, we have about 10, 15 minutes to field Q&A. And it just takes one to start. And then,
Raise your hand and I'll run up to you.
and then Aaron will run to you.
I will.
Yep. All right. Who's going to be it? There we go. All right. Open the floodgates. That's how it works.
Hi, my name's Helena.
Hi, Selena.
Helena, sorry.
Helena.
Helena.
Hi.
what is it like being a woman of color in the industry of like starting your own business? Because it's not only that you are a woman, but you're also like a different ethnicity, and that can be very hard in like America and trying to just start something for yourself. So
I've never saw it as hard. I always saw it as my opportunity, because I know when I walk into rooms that there's not going to be another viewpoint like mine. And I've got a lot of confidence with that. And I think just through the years, I've had a lot of opportunities to be in special rooms where folks have far more education, they're at the Ivy Leagues, their parents come from wealth, and I'm still sitting there in that room adding value. And so I think that for that reason, I've never looked at being a woman of color as something that would not enable me. I actually thought that it was the thing that gave me the edge. That's what made me special, and I've never been afraid to trade on that. And so for as long as I can remember, folks always say she's just so authentic, like she shows up as her full self. And in me embracing who I am and in all these experiences, like that's the thing that really keeps me in a room. And I think that that's the thing that people value the most about me. So I would say take everything that you have that's a part of your background, like that becomes a key piece of your story. And that's going to be why you think about things so differently than other people, but it's also going to be why your opinion for the most part is welcomed.
Next question.
Any next question? Don't be shy.
I have one. I have another one.
What you got?
How are you managing Storehouse from like a production perspective? Your supply chain grad, like, do you outsource manufacturing? Are you doing it all in-house? This is a question I was curious about. All in-house. So you do all of it.
We are completely vertical. Integrated.
Okay.
And
why and how?
It takes that in order to be successful. So in the context of what we're discussing in the consumer goods space, if our goal is to help nonprofits offer a product to their constituents and pass back through a rev share, that means that we really have to trim out all the fat.
Okay.
So we don't have
there can be no
middleman kind of added to it, because the moment that we do that, now we're kind of stripping away profits.
Right.
And I don't know any other way. And so because I learned how to source and how to do things across the pond at a very early age, like that's what's natural to me.
Okay.
To do it any other way is hard.
Yeah.
So like when we spent some time out in California because we considered setting up a supply chain out there. And Dimitri will attest to it. We went there and we thought it was the most complicated thing in the world. Right. We were out there for a week just trying to wrap our mind around like how things get done in the United States. And we were like, man, this is really difficult.
Yeah.
Like we would have to really build out a full ecosystem here in order for it to be successful. And then the margins also just weren't there. So what was natural for us also turned out to be the thing that was also financially solvent for us.
And also probably the most beneficial to you during 2020 too, right? Like as you thought about the supply chain issues in COVID.
That's right.
Cool.
Hi, friends.
Oh, hold on. Got Mike.
Hello. Thank you so much for being here today. My question is, I think it's really fascinating how you're able to kind of stack your skills and experiences and interest over time in each venture and kind of like help propel you and like prepare you for those opportunities. Are there any maybe future skills or even like experiences that you think would help take you to the next level, or like anything that you would like want to learn or like add to your skill set moving forward?
That's a really good question. So I think one of the things is like what I'm doing here now, like public speaking, right? So I think that the first couple years were really dedicated to my parents, right? Like go to college, get a good education, check that box for them. Then the next couple years, it's just like, okay, well, try to do something for yourself, right? Try to get a savings account, try to get out of debt. Then the next couple of years, okay, try to help community. And then now I'm like, we've been very fortunate to learn a lot and do a lot. And now I think it's time to give that back. And the best way to be able to give that back is like by having these sort of conversations, by writing books and things like that. Those things are not naturally my strength. And so I'm working on that muscle now. So let me know how I'm doing so I can figure out how hard I got to keep working at it. But I think part of it now, one thing that I want to learn is how to take the skills that I've learned over time, how to package them and give them to somebody else so they don't have to run as hard. And so I think in these underserved communities, what normally happens, and my friend gave me a fantastic analogy. She said that with some families, a parent will run their race and then pass the baton, and then their child would just go further and then so on. But in a Black community or in these underserved communities, it's a boomerang. Like you run a little bit, like, and then you got to spin around and come all the way back. And so for me, I'm just like, okay, well, how do you not die with everything that you've learned? Like, how do you take this? How do you give it away so that the next generation that comes along, they just pick up right where you left off and they run fast from right there. And then not only that, how do you seed it into them to be giving it away all along? Because the problem is we hold on to it for too long, and then it gets hard to go run all the way back. So public speaking, engage in groups like this. And I would say that's probably it for now. Like, I like to take off small things that I think that I can accomplish, and then maybe in another couple of years when I feel like I've done a decent job at this, like I'll have some other pie in the sky idea.
I like that. Yeah. All right, probably got time for one or two more questions.
Right there.
Yeah. See, you're working, Aaron. Got it. Yes.
So you mentioned going over to the UK and how you cut out the middleman. Would you start producing there, or would you keep producing here and ship it there?
No, I would still keep our current supply chain in place. When launching something new, we don't believe in making all the pieces new. So in an effort to be successful, we would run the play that we know how to run very well already. And once I think we see traction and things are going the way that we hoped, we would then look at the business to see if there are parts that could be done more efficiently or effectively out of that local region. But in the beginning, we would be nervous to just try something new when we're also trying a new venture in a new spot. So likely to be the same supply chain and everything in the beginning.
Sacrifice a little bit of the margin to experiment.
Yep, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Okay, hi. Is this, okay, sorry.
You're good.
I am also a supply chain major, so it was super impactful to hear from you. But I was curious what it was like to work for yourself and then also work for someone else and what you learned in both situations.
Yeah, I mean, when you work for somebody else, you really don't think about it after 5, right? Like, so I remember, going to work every day, giving it 110% while I was there. But the moment you hit the parking lot, like, you really aren't thinking about it anymore. I don't think we're able to go literally 60 seconds, like, without thinking about our business. And I think everything that we do now is just a part of it. Like, so it's hard to be on vacation and not see something and say, well, that's an interesting vertical, or, hey, maybe we need to consider working with them, right? So I think that the biggest distinction is, one, never having the ability to turn it off. And it's a good thing, and a bad thing, because sometimes you really do just need rest. But I think that the concept of that, you can just throw that out the window. Everything has a season, but when you're running your business, just expect to be 150% on. Mm-hmm. There's no concept of turning it off. There may be some times when it feels better than other times, but just assume that you're always at the wheel. And I don't think when I was working for other companies that I realized the luxury that I had to go to work and just go home. Right. And there was a complete separation. Dimitri doesn't get to sleep at night. He's up 24/7, dealing with the supply chain and all of these other sort of things that are incumbent in the business. Notwithstanding that, the impact is so much greater, working for yourself. And so if you're inside of a corporation, you may have some project that you're working on that you love, but all it takes is one new king to come in and say, that product is dead. This project is dead. here's something else that you're working on, or maybe you get reassigned. I think in business, you get to come up with your own goals. You get to find your own people and serve who you want to serve. So I would say I'm willing to trade off the peace in exchange for the impact. But that's been the greatest distinction for me between working for myself and working for somebody else.
Man, that is a really good answer.
I do have a question.
Yeah, Aaron, you got one.
So,
Close us.
in terms of, so yes, when you are running your own business, you're running at 150%, and that's because you are the one at risk, right? How do you balance that? Like, how do you take that 1 second out for yourself so that you don't end up crashing and burning?
So that favorite book, the Bible, letting me know that it's not all on me, that no matter what happens in this business, like it'll be worked out for my good either way, right? Like, so you really have to digest that and believe it. And to the extent that you do that, that takes some pressure off. The second part is that you've got to work with people that you wholeheartedly trust. Like, there are completely times when I just have to hit the eject button, and I feel bad for Dimitri or the other leaders that are within the company, but it's just like I have to hit eject, and they recognize it, like, oh, she's completely offline, like everybody get in there, right? And so I think like building out a team of people that you can really trust, that will shoot with you in the gym, like whether it's practice or the game, like that's really important. And so I would say between my faith, family, and like trusted business associates, I'm okay to take that breath like when I need it.
Yeah, great answer. All right. Thank you. Well, thank you, Tamira, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
I'm guessing you might hang around for a minute or two if there's any shy question and answers. Feel free to come on up. So thank you again.
Got it.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
so
you.
much. Yep.